Okay, fine. So my screen is visible, I think. Is it so? Any responses from anyone?
No, sir.
Now this time?
Sir, it's showing that screen is present in your screen. Yeah, right now it is.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. So, yeah, fine. So we are in the allocation of us. We are in the phase of designing a subsystem, and in our designing a subsystem, we are in the fifth step that we are going for this allocation of our subsystem. So in case of allocation of subsystem, we had just gone from this estimating the performance, the need, and the resources, what how to satisfy them, and so on. Then now we are in the next step, we are going for making this hardware the software trades off. So when we are going object orientation phase, so your object orientation just provides a good way of thinking about your hardware. So each device is as expected as an object, and that operates particularly on uh, uh, operates on concurrently on your other objects, like we are having some different devices or we are having some different softwares. So we must decide which subsystem will be implemented in hardware and which subsystem will be implemented as an hardware. So we are in two main reasons. First in the cost and the second is the performance. So we had gone over this in the last class. So when we are considering this cost, so the existing hardware provides exactly the functionality that are being required, and it is easier to buy a floating point chip rather than to implement all those floating point system and so on. Then we are having sensors, actuators that must be in hardware, and then this, yeah, when we are having some cost effective issues, then we must choose whether we are going for hardware and the software. So obviously the cost of hardware is much more than your software. Then another trade-off is that you are having another point is that you are going from performance. So obviously the performance of the hardware is much greater than the performance of your hardware, because these hardwares are usually faster than your particular software. So we have to find out whether we have to go for the hardware or the software trades off, and we have to choose whether we should choose uh, a particular subsystem that to be implemented on your hardware or on the software. Then the next phase or the third step for allocating your subsystem is to allocating your tasks to the processors. Yeah, so we are having some multi-processor system. So when we are in the system design, so your system design must allocate all those tasks for various software subsystem to the particular processors. So we are having several reasons for assigning some tasks to your processors. Like say we are having the logistics, the communication limits, the computation limits, and so on. So when we are considering this logistics, certain tasks that are required for a specific physical location, let's say to control your hardware or to permit your independent operation. So for an example, let's say uh, some engineering workstation needs its own operating system to permit operation when the inter-process network is down. So fine. So this is an particular reason that you need some specific physical location, and for that particular specific location you need some uh, you need to allocate your task to a certain processor. Then another thing is that communication limits, because the response time or the data flow rates sometimes exceeds with the available communication bandwidth that is being available. Let's say in our university too, sir, we are in some process that we are uh, as my side, we are running near about 300 parallel classes. So connecting on this Microsoft team takes sometimes much time. So we have some communication limits. So for this communication limit, we have to find out whether some task that is to be uh, assigned or allocated to your particular processor or the dedicated processor, so it is to be carried out more fastly and more efficiently. Then we are having some computation limit also. So computation, again we are having some these computation rates uh, are just too great for a single processor. Let's say we are deploying some TensorFlow applications on our system. So uh, for this particular TensorFlow applications. Your single processors are just an uh, very slow system. So what we are trying to do is that we need some high performance computing. So for that particular system you need a certain, let's say we need some GPUs that can perform that computation on that particular TensorFlow application. So this is how we can go for assigning our task to a particular processor. So we are having three limits, like logistic reasons are there, and the communication limits are there, and then some computation limits are there. So these are the different issues that we have to go. Again, we are, when we are considering this our ATM example. So for this ATM example, let's say we do not have any particular issues like with our communication and the computation limits. So communication traffics and the computation on that particular ATM are just your user initiates with some a little bit of communication, and it doesn't need much of computation, but it have some issues with your logistic. For an example, if your uh, ATM must have some autonomy, or then some operating functionalities, then communication, when your communication is down, then you must need some logistic reasons, or you need some processor that can communicate directly with the consortium or the bank. So we need some dedicated processors related to your ATM machines. Fine. Then the another issues related with your allocating of your subsystem is just determining the physical connectivity. So just an after determining the kind and the relative number of the physical units where we had identified this number of processors needed, we must determine the arrangement of their physical locations. So we are having three different topologies are available. So we are having different things, like we are having some connected topology. So we must choose a topology for connecting your physical units. Let's say we are having multiple processors associated with, let's say for particular logistic reason, or the communication limits or the computation limits. So, fine. So we need multiple processors, and for that we have to choose a perfect topology to connect all those physical units. So association in your class models often correspond to your physical connection. So a client server relationships also corresponds to your physical connection. So we need some connection that may be indirect, and you must try to minimize the connection costs that are important in your information system. In addition to that, we have to find out the repeated units. So we have to choose such topology that contains some repeated units. So if we have some boosted performance, like including several copies of your particular kind of unit or some group of units, or we must specify a particular topology. So for that, the class model is not useful, uh, because the use of multiple units is just primarily a design optimization, and this is not required, not a part of your analysis. So the topology for repeated units are usually a regular pattern. Let's say we are having some linear sequences, or we can have some matrix, or we can have some tree or the star topology that is being available. So we must consider the expected arrival pattern of your data and the proposed parallel algorithm that are coming on to this. So we have to consider some repeated units, or we can say that we are going from some loops and so on. Then we are having some, we have to determine the physical connectivity based on your communication. So we must choose the form of the connection channel and the communication protocols. So when we are in the system design, so the your system design phase must specify the exact interfaces among different units or different nodes. So let's say, again, considering an example, let's say when we are having some interaction in our asynchronous medium, or a synchronous medium, or you are a blocking medium. So we must estimate the bandwidth and the latency of your communication channel, and we must choose the correct kind of the communication channel for appropriate asynchronous or the synchronous or the blocking uh, methodologies. So even when the connections are logical and these are not physical, we must consider all those things again. Let's say we are having some units that performing some task on your single operating system, so that are connected by, let's say, that are connected by some IPCs. So for such IPCs, their calls are very slower in some of the operating system. In some operating system, these calls are very faster. So we have to consider whether we are designing a system that is time critical. So we have to take care of that IPCs, because this IPCs take some times with communicating in between them. So we have to identify all those things. Right. Then the next thing for designing your system is we have to go for the management of data storage. So we are having several alternatives for our data storage, so we can use them separately or we can use in combination, like we are having data structures, or we are having some files, or we have some databases. So different kinds of data stores provide some trade-offs between your cost, your access time, your capacity, and your reliability. For an example, let's say we are having some personal computer application that uses your memory as a data structure. Uh, so let's say, again, considering an accounting system, so we may use a database to connect our subsystems. So we are having different types of data stores available. Let's say we are having some files, we are having databases, we are having a data structure. Then we'll started with our files. So these files are considered as cheap and simple and the permanent, because but your file operations are at the low level, and the application that uh, communicating with these files need some additional code to find to parse your data right from your files, because these file systems are usually considered as an unstructured files, unstructured data. Then when we are going from this file implementation, so this file implementation may vary from your different computer system. So you must need some portable application that must be carefully isolate your file system dependency. Let's say we are having this either we are going from this .txt file, or we are going from .bat file, or even we are going from this unknown file type, or we are going .word file, or uh, are different versions of your file system. So we have to take care of all those things. In addition to that, how much amount of data or the block space is allocated to a particular file by your operating system. So we have to check all those dependencies with respect to your particular operating system. Let's say when we are in the uh, simple FAT32 file system, you are having 4 GB of block size data available. When we are in the NTFS file system, we are having a much larger block size of your data that is being available for your particular file. So we have to find out, we have to check our different dependencies. So we are having different characteristics of the kind of data that belongs to a particular file. So when you are in this certain type of data that is being available, then we can go for your file system. So what are these uh, parameters? Like we are having a data that have high volume and low information density, such as, let's say, uh, we have some archive files or the history records. So this इनको हम बार बार यूज़ नहीं करते. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ गोइंग इन द डेटाबेस सिस्टम, क्योंकि डेटाबेस मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम आपका इंफॉर्मेशन रिट्रीवल पे ज़्यादा अच्छा काम करता है, तो इंस्टेड हमको उसका यूज़ ही नहीं है. हम एक या दो बार या साल में 2-4 बार ही उस फाइल को यूज़ कर रहे हैं. तो व्हाट वी कैन डू इज दैट, लेट्स से यू आर कंसिडरिंग द लॉग्स और आर्काइव फाइल्स और हिस्टोरिकल रिकॉर्ड्स. सो उसके लिए बेटर इज दैट वी शुड गो फॉर फाइल सिस्टम इंस्टेड ऑफ योर डेटाबेस मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम. Then we are having the modest quantities of data with simple structure. Yeah, let's say we are having only text file and it doesn't contains any type of the structure, or let's say this text file, again, let's say we are storing our tweets in file. So these tweets are just again stored in your only in text file, because we don't need much parsers or much structured or SGML formats for that particular system. So we must go for your files. Then the next thing is that the data that are accessed sequentially, because uh, in your file system your data is placed as an uh, placed sequentially. So the data that is to be accessed sequentially, we are not performing some types of a computation over there. We are just accessing your file. So you are just accessing or reading your data, and this data is read as in sequentially. So we must go for this file system. Then a data that can be fully read into your memory. So you need some data that is being just copied from your persistent storage and that to your, let's say, temporary storage, that's a primary memory. So the simpler thing is that we should go for your uh, file system, because the read and the write operations are much easier in that particular memory. We don't need a small chunks of data. We are reading the full complete data. So instead of having that different structures available or the text available in your particular specific database and other system, or let's say in data structure, we are just getting data right from your persistent storage. So we are just copying data, so we don't need any type of structure. So thus we can say that we should go for this file system. Then in addition to that, we are having some database management systems. So these database management systems are managed by these databases are usually managed by your database management system. These are the another kind of data store that are being available. So we are having various types of database available that depends on your vendors. In addition to that, it includes whether it is a relational database or it is an object oriented database. So your database management system cache are frequently accessed in your data memory in order to achieve, let's say, best combination of your data. So we are having some trade-offs for your cost and the performance right from your memory and your disk storage. So database application makes some easier to read and write operations, but yeah, it depends on your particular hardware and your operating system platforms, because your vendors, database vendors, creating all those data on your specific platforms or for a specific hardware. So one of the disadvantage of this database management system is that these are very complex and these are having complex interfaces. So we are having some different kinds of data. Then uh, when we are when we choose this data to be stored in your database management system, so these are the different kinds of data. So this is written over in read cases or read phones. So first type of data is that the data that requires update at the fine levels of details by the multiple users. So we are having some concurrent access and data is that is accessed frequently and at a very fine level of detail. So what we are trying to do is that we'll choose for database management system. Then the second point is that the data must be accessed by the multiple application program. Again, we are having some multiple access of your data, or we are having some concurrent access of data, because when we are going from this file system, when one single application is accessing data, it put lock on your that particular file for a particular state of time. So when you are going from this concurrent access, so you must go for database management system. Then the data requires the coordinated updated via transaction. Again, fine, we are having some transactions. So these transactions are very much easier to implement your database instead of your file system. So when we are having some transactional data, then you should go for your database management system. Then the large quantities of data that must be handled efficiently. Fine, this is just obvious case, or this just an advantage of your database management system. When you are having lots of data that is being available, and this data is needs uh, some indexes, because when you are having a lots of data that is being available and you need to read this data right from any particular point. So from a particular uh, point, you need some indexes that are being available. So just where you should go or you should move at particular state of time. So the records or the indexes are being created by your particular database management system. So it is easier to move at a certain particular um, point in your database management system. While when you are going from this file management system, you are considering only the sequential access, because you are accessing the sequential, then sequential access is just an uh, uh, good for your file system. But when you are reading or writing data at random points, so you need some indexes, and then for that particular indexes you need this database management system. Then the fifth one is that the data that are long lived and highly value for organization. So the access of data is very frequent, and this is these these are valuable data, or let's say this is an information, so these information are stored in some structured form. So for this structured form, you need to store it in database management system, because your file system doesn't provide any structured uh, access to this data. So this is why we are going from database management system. And the last one is that the data must be secured against the unauthorized access and the malicious access. So each database management system provide a security of your data, and you cannot access your data right from your disk location, because this data is encrypted in some form that you can only use right through the interfaces of this database management system. So that's why we are going for a database management system. In addition to that, we are having object oriented database management systems are available, but these are not uh, much popular in your market. So we should consider this database object oriented database management system for some special applications. uh, so what are these types of application? Let's say we are having some engineering applications, or the multimedia applications, or there's some knowledge based application, or let's say electronic devices with your embedded software. So most of this application needs a database, and we either go for object oriented database, or we must go for this relational database, that is been RDMS. But this RDMS usually dominate your particular marketplace, because it provides the sufficient features for your most application. And uh, at the level of your database management system, it is very difficult to store data as an object oriented part. So this relational database, which manages the different types of relationship between your data, so this is being more popular, and this is more widely being used by different users. Although we are having some research problems and research issues are available in object oriented database, that and we can create or some this object oriented database, or we can define some type of structures, so that this object oriented database becomes much popular than your object oriented database. But till now this RDBMS are much popular, and it dominate your marketplace. Fine, again we are taking just an example of your uh, uh, let's say ATM example. So your typical bank computer uses your relational databases, and these relational databases are usually fast, readily available, and the cost effective, because these are available in very bulk size and hugely highly available. So these are just cost effective for some this financial application. So ATM might also use the object oriented database, but these are very less. So relational database or object oriented database both have some possibilities to build in your information system. Let's say many object oriented database permits access level to your low level primitives or stripped down databases, but the features that are being available in the relational database are much uh, appropriate for using even for the object oriented database, and this is why your relational database are dominating your marketplace. Then the next step for creating your system design or uh, is handling the global resources. So your system designer must identify your global resources, and it determine the mechanism to control all those global resources, and how we can manage, or how we can manage the access of these global resources. So we are having different kinds of global resources are available. So let's say what kinds of global resources. So we are having some physical units. So these physical units includes your processor, your tape drives, your communication satellites, and so on. Then we are having some spaces available. So this includes your disk spaces, your workstation screen, your button on your, even button on your mouse is just an example of your spaces. Then we are having some logical names are available. So this logical name includes your object IDs, your file names, your class names, and so on. Then we are having some access to shared data. So a database are just a simple example of this access to your shared data. So if a resource is a physical object, so if your resource is just a physical object, then it can be controlled by establishing just a protocol for obtaining its access. So if the resources is again a logical entity, such as, let's say, we are having some objects or we are having some database, then there is just a danger for conflicting access in your shared environment. So independence task should be uh, applied on this logical entities to avoid these conflicts. Fine. So to avoid all these conflicts, we have some guardian objects. So these guardian objects have some global resources and uh, a way to control access to it. So if one guardian object can control several resources, let's say all access to the resources must pass through an guardian object, then allocating and shared resources to a single object is recognized by your is resource identity. So the guardian object is just have some access on your let's say logical entities, and this logical how to control this logical entities. So we need some IDs, or we are in some identity to identify which processes or which subsystems or which uh, artifacts are used in particular logical entity. So in addition to that, we can also partition our resources logically. Let's say we are assigning to the subsets of our guardian objects. Uh, Again, considering an example, let's say we are having some object IDs, and we are having different objects, and these objects are usually available in your distributed system. So we must need some guardian objects that can manage their allocation to your let's say particular resources. Again, let's say एक example लेके चलते हैं. Let's say we are having the cloud architecture, or we are having some distributed system. So in distributed system you are having some files, or again we are having some shared system. Let's say my system has an printer. So this printer is shared among 3 or the 4 faculties. So at particular instant of time, I am just printing my some data on this printer. In addition to that, at the same time, another faculty is again going to print his document on the printer. So we need some guardian objects, and these guardian objects uh, requires or have some mechanism when to allocate a resource for particular faculty, and when to allocate this resource to another faculty at particular instant of time, when we are accessing all those entities at particular instant of time. Again, we are having some time critical application. So in that in your time critical application, the cost of passing uh, access to your resources through your guardian object sometimes very high. So in this case, we need some locks. So locks is just a logical object associated with your defined subset of the resources that gives some permission or some access to your lock holder. So at particular moment of time, let's say I am the lock holder, so I have all the permission related to my printer. So this is how we can go for lock instead of guardian objects, but because these guardian objects takes much time for your system. So this is how we can give go for Guardian objects as well as an locks. So when we are comparing this Guardian objects and this locks, so these locks are very faster than your Guardian objects. Then the next topic is choosing a software control strategy. So I think I should stop on this point, and then we'll cover this choosing software control strategy in the next class. Then at that time, if you are having any problem, then you can ask me. I'm just stopping